Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our fortnightly Q&As. Tonight, we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Ceri Lewis from Kiwi Stock Dogs.
How's it going, mate?
Good, thanks, Dan.
What have you been up to? What today bring on?
We've just started lambing and calving, so checking heifers and doing a bit of lambing beat. We've had a bit of a wild dog problem up here, so trying to keep them at bay and checking dog traps and see it all go.
Having with the wild dog problem, has that created a bit of an issue for you and your dogs around the cattle?
Well, you can tell when they've been about because all the stock just mob up. But not really. No, not really. I mean, the sheep get really nervous when the dogs have been about, but yeah, it's not the end of the world. I've actually taught my dogs to catch foxes. Haven't got dogs close enough yet, but I reckon they'd go.
I didn't expect dogs to be a big issue down that way, especially with something like lifestyle blocks and smaller acreage.
Yeah, no, they're pretty bad. Like they seem to do a circuit. We see them probably once every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But I got called to go to a bloke down the road last weekend who had some sheep that had gone feral. And my partner and I, Lizzie, mustered about 30 a couple of weeks ago, and he rang me up and said, there's another 5 there. We went to get them and the following morning and they'd killed 5 of them. So.
Oh, shit.
Unreal.
Yeah. No, they're pretty savage.
I suppose a lot of pine forest in the back. Actually, do you want to let us know where you are?
Yeah, so we're in the Southern Highlands in a place called Canyon Lee, which is between Mossvale and Mossvale and Marulan. So we're surrounded by either Bangadilly National Park,
yep,
with 4,500 acres, Bangadilly Station, and surrounded either by or got a handful of lifestyle neighbours, but yeah, they get bothered by the dogs as well. You know, they're harassing their ponies and killing llamas and alpacas and bad news.
Plus, that's
anyway,
the Penrose State Forest, like pine forest, wouldn't be that far from there either, so it'd be a big breeding ground.
Yeah, they tend to live in the Wallandilly River, and they do a circuit. And they sort of come around every 6 weeks. But partner and I, Lizzie, went to a dog trapping school actually about a couple of 3 months ago with Milo Matthews, which was really valuable. Learned a heap there and bought a heap of traps. We haven't caught any dogs yet, but just knowing how they think and how they operate was it just blew my mind, really. Yeah, and the knowledge that bloke's got about wild dogs is pretty incredible. So well worth it.
It's pretty cool to be able to get a dog in millions of acres to step on an inch pad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like I've had my ass handed to me a couple of times. They've dug the trap up, flipped it upside down and not set it off. So probably teaching them some bad habits. Yeah.
A bit of work to do, yeah.
So for those who don't know you, Ceri, you want to tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you ended up in Australia?
Where that accent come from?
Yeah, so I was born in Wales a few moons ago now, and then went to New Zealand when I was 15 years old. I was pretty naughty when I was at school, and got to the stage where no one else in Wales wanted to take me on. So before I finished my final exams, I got expelled from my third school, and my father said that's enough. So he sent me to New Zealand, to the east coast of the North Island, expelled to the colonies to grow up for a year. And so I did that. Had an unbelievable experience there. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left Wales, but worked on a farm over there in 1982, I think it was, 81, 82. It was pretty Wild West then. I lived in a shearers' quarters with 30 Fijian scrub cutters, so straight from a Welsh boarding school to shearers' quarters with these big Fijian fellas that couldn't speak a word of English. So it was just, yeah, sink or swim, I guess. So that was a bit of an experience. And then I loved it so much. After that year, I decided that I wanted to be farming, and I went back to Wales. I spent a year redoing the exams that I hadn't been able to finish because I was so naughty, just to get university entrance. Then went to uni for 3 years, and as soon as I'd finished uni, went straight back to New Zealand.
And what did
Started
you study?
farming there. Sorry, Laura.
What were you studying at uni?
I just did an ag degree, did a Bachelor Agricultural Science, and managed to scrape through that because, again, there was more play than work, and happened to have a girlfriend that did all my assignments for me, and it was just I was so convinced I was going to fail that the day they announced the exam results, I was playing tennis. So I didn't want to be there and embarrass myself, but I managed to pass, and came straight back out to New Zealand, did another year in New Zealand, and then actually came to Australia for 18 months in 1987, I think it was, 87, 88. And they were developing Darling Harbour at the time, and I'd never worked in a city in my life before. So got a job as a brickies labourer in Darling Harbour. And so they were building it all for that bicentennial. You guys are probably too young to remember that, but they had a bicentennial in 1988, I think it was. So yeah, did that, and did a stint in the outback, west of Longreach, and another stint sort of Gundawindi, riding polo ponies and chasing pigs, and just had a brilliant time. And I always loved Australia so much that I said, I'd want to come back here at some stage before the end of my working career. But then, got tied up in New Zealand and with various jobs, and finally decided at the age of 50, probably 8, I think it was, that if I was going to get back to Australia, I needed to do it sooner rather than later. So 3 years ago, finished up in New Zealand, came over here, and the rest is history.
So when you're in New Zealand, my understanding is that you had a pretty big role over there. Like, do you want to talk us, like, just before you come to Australia 3 years ago? I know I've heard a few stories through Pete that it was pretty full on operation and set up there with the dogs. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I managed a place called Mount Linton Station, which is in the bottom of the South Island, for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Went there in 2004, I think, until 2022. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. And 100,000 stock units, 40,000 ewes, 3,500 cows, 20 staff, 100 dogs. Not mine, of course, but staff-wise, 100 dogs. And we had an Angus stud there, which I ran, bred we had 800 performance recorded cows or APR cows, and I ran that. So yeah, that was basically, I mean, I have always had a team of dogs, but when I went to Mount Linton, just doing cattle work all the time, I just found that, I needed to have dogs that were a bit harder than most of them, just to be, we had 300 or 400 bulls and 850, 900 stud cows. So needed something that was not going to be able to take a backward step and, get into them really and shift them.
And having such a big team, did you find yourself like towards the end still working your dogs a fair bit?
Yeah, I did, Dan, because essentially I was a general manager, so I had an admin role, but I had a really good admin manager, and that meant that I was able to sort of delegate a lot of the stuff that I didn't have to do, admin stuff. And because I ran the stud, the Angus stud, then I was pretty hands on with that most of the time. So
that's pretty cool, because it's fairly common to see some people get lost in the paperwork side of a role that big, right, and not doing what their actual passion is. So it's pretty cool that you got to keep your hands in the dirt, so to speak.
Yeah, and I employed some really capable people to take responsibility over other areas of the property. So had sort of 4 or 5 senior guys that looked after the agriculture side of stuff, so the cropping and the regrassing, and then had a sheep genetics manager, and then a stock manager on the hill, and a stock manager on the downs country, on the lower country. So everyone had their own area of responsibility, and I always thought it was a really good idea anyway, because it just grows people. You can't run a place like that on your own.
No, absolutely.
And the more you can delegate and sort of spread the responsibility, it just grows people, and it just makes my life a lot easier as well.
You mentioned, like, you talked about the different types of people you had helping you there. You mentioned the South Islands. Whereabouts was that?
So it was it's sort of between Invercargill and Tiana, which is so it's, we were about 1,200 mil rainfall, but you jump in a helicopter and go 20 minutes, and it's 9 meters rainfall. So it's fjordland, basically.
That was where I was going with that, because obviously weather would have been a big part of your role there as well. Like, challenging weather conditions.
Yeah, climate was our biggest challenge. Basically, it was just huge. So you'd get everything right. You'd get all the lambs inside the ewes. You'd flush them properly. You'd scan well. Same with calving, and then you get a weather bomb at lambing and calving, and 12 months' work's just basically gone. But it didn't happen every year. But the climate was certainly our biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And did that have play on the dogs that you selected as well?
The climate?
Yeah.
Probably not. We looked after the dogs really well in terms of housing, kenneling, and all the shepherds had jackets for their dogs in the winter, and all the kennels were insulated, and they were really well fed, So, but again, I suppose it's horses for courses. They're punching huge mobs of sheep through yards day in, day out, scanning, shearing, crutching. You had to have dogs that had a bit of ticker, so anything that didn't have any ticker didn't really last long. They'd get flicked off, and so they were pretty hard dogs. Really, they had to have a bit of go about them.
Mm-hmm.
That said, you actually mentioned that you had realised the dogs that you went there originally, you had to kind of move on and move towards something a bit harder. Like, you want to talk to us a bit about the style of dog and the breeds of dogs you had to that job?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always I got into dog trials probably in the mid '90s in New Zealand, probably mainly with Hunterways. Although I did have I'd probably qualify a heading dog every year for most of the years, but mainly I had Hunterways because in New Zealand you've got big steep country and you need a lot of Hunterways just to get the sheep going, and the distances you've got to cover, you've just got to have a few barrels behind you to get the sheep back to the yard. So I guess when I went to Mount Linton, I probably had 4 or 5 Hunterways and a couple of heading dogs, and then by the time I left Mount Linton, I probably only had 2 Hunterways and 4 or 5 pretty hard heading dogs. So, the dynamic definitely changed. And I mean, I've always had heading dogs. I can't stand dogs that you walk into a paddock and you're wondering whether you can get the stock out of them. I've just never been able to handle that. I've just, even if you've got to do a bit of jumping on your hat and yelling, if you can get the stock out of there, then those are the sort of dogs I've always really wanted. So,
yeah.
But to be fair, they got harder and harder over the years. Yeah.
So, sorry, you go.
So obviously that comes with, it's a bit of a give and take thing. The easier they are, the softer they are, generally the easier they are to work. And then, you keep breeding them to swing off cows and chew bulls' noses, then they tend to, sometimes they get a bit headstrong and can be a challenge. But I'd rather that than the other way. I've plenty of times I got rung up when I was at Mount Linton, and the fellas with their trial dogs couldn't shift the stock, and I had to go out and get the job done for them.
Mm-hmm. So when you were in Australia and you're up Longreach and Gundy, was it sort of obviously a lot flatter terrain, but were you working dogs there as well?
No, I just didn't do any dog work at all, really, when I was in Australia. But it was almost like a break. I did 6 months in Sydney on the building sites, and I never lived in a city in my life before, so that was just like wow. So I came from a village up in the mountains in North Wales where there were 20 kids at our school, and 50 people lived in the village, I think. And so, going to Sydney and living, and there was someone actually living next door to you was just,
mind-boggling. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did dogs come into the picture at the start for you then?
So my first year in New Zealand, straight from school, I worked for a couple on the Mahia Peninsula on the east coast of the North Island, and they had a huge team of dogs. They had, I don't know, probably 20 dogs between them. And I used to do a lot of the yard work for them, and they gave me a Hunterway to work while I was doing the yard work, and I just got the bug and loved it to bits. And then I went back to Wales, and the middle year of my university, I worked on a hill farm for 6 months in Wales, and then another 6 months in Scotland. And I was working for a bloke in Wales who'd bought this dog and wasn't getting on with it at all. And he was actually probably on death's row. And the bloke said to me, if you want him, you can have him. And I took him, and within about 3 weeks, I had him going really, really well. And I just got the bug from there. And so always once that happened, that was sort of a bit of a light bulb moment, I suppose. I just knew I wanted to have dogs and wanted to go farming.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you learn to educate a dog?
It's a good question, Dan. So when I went in the early days in New Zealand, A lot of blokes didn't want to tell you how to train a dog. It was just a bizarre sort of a culture, I guess, because they thought, I'm going to teach this young fella how to break a dog in, and he's going to beat me at a dog trial. And there was a lot of that bullshit going on. But finally, so I bought a team of dogs when I came back from Australia, and I bought 6 dogs in one hit from completely different people, just because I had to have the dogs to get the job.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a baptism of fire as well. And needed a bit of help with them, and I just kept asking and finally found some people that wanted to help me, and then I had one dog that was just a bit of a freak. I got him as a pup from a couple I worked for in the South Island, and he just basically broke himself in. And I took him to a local dog trial one day, not expecting anything, and he won the maiden and the open in this first go, and I just got the bug from there, and then decided that I really wanted to, do the job properly. And so I used to sit in with judges, like clerk for them when they were judging, and I'd learn from what needed to happen on a dog trial course, and then I'd ask them, "Oh, you don't know anyone who could help me with a young dog I've got?" And once you found the right people, and one of the guys I sat in with, actually, he said, "Oh, don't ask me. I'll take you to the guy, a bloke called Kevin O'Connor, who's a bit of a in the day, he was a bit of a legend over there."
Yeah.
And so then I used to go on weekends. I'd drive down from where I was in Hawke's Bay. I'd drive down maybe 2 or 3 hours and spend, 4 or 5 hours with Kevin, and then found another guy called Paul Sorensen, who's a Huntaway legend. He's won God knows how many New Zealand titles. He lived in the King Country, which is probably a 4 or 5 hour drive. But I'd drive over there on a weekend, and I'd spend, 4 or 5 hours with him, and I was just like a sponge. And I'd do it week in, week out. I just every weekend, Sunday afternoon, or I'd just go wherever I needed to, and just to learn. And yeah.
You mentioned there, and I'm fortunate to actually know the answer to this, but you mentioned that I'd clerk for judges. Do you want to explain what that's actually about?
Yeah. So in New Zealand, generally what happens at a dog trial is you have the judge, and then you have someone sitting next to him keeping the score. So it's a bit different to over here, where everyone seems to use clickers, like the shearing clickers, to take points off. In New Zealand, you've got a sheet of A4 in front of you, and you actually draw the course, and you draw so for example, in a long head, which could be 800 meters away, and you should be a pear-shaped cast all the way around the top. The judge would mark on the sheet any faults on the dog on the way out, and then any faults on the way back. And then it was the clerk's job to keep the time. So, it could be a 12 or 14-minute course. It was your job to keep the time, and then to check his adding up at the end of the run.
Mm-hmm. They might even add a note, right? The judge might give the clerk a note, and they might just write like a comment.
Sounds like a dressage test.
Yeah, you were sitting right next to him, so yeah. It was you'd learn what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable, and where it was pretty standard over there. They do a lot of judging schools, and you've got to sit in with a judge probably for a season and a half before they'll put you up as a judge, and you've got to sit in. So they nominate senior judges in each centre. So, for example, they'll have it's like Victoria, Northern Territory. Same in New Zealand. You've got Hawke's Bay, Taranaki, and so on. You've got 4 or 5 senior judges. You've got to sit in with those judges, and then you might sit in with him for, I don't know, for 3/4 of the day, and then he'll hand you a bit of paper and a pen, and he'll say, right, I want you to judge the next 4 or 5 rounds. And if you're within 2 or 3 points of him, happy days. And if you're not, bad luck, mate.
Yeah.
Come back tomorrow. And you've got to do that with several different people.
I've seen a few of those A4 sheets now with him, and I spent some time with one of my mates over there. And it was real cool. And then he actually, a lot of the trials are videotaped as well. So he was actually talking me through the judges sheet while we're watching the run on telly in the comfort of his lounge room. And I thought that was like really cool because like we don't video a lot of our trials either.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just really an easy way to learn.
It is, yeah. Really, very structured. And if you're not good enough, you're not good enough, and you don't get past.
It seems like trialing is almost not a rite of passage
It's like
over there. It's almost like a religion, not cult, but it seems like if you have dogs, you trial in New Zealand, no matter what. Like your average farmer just seems to trial, where over here it sort of seems the opposite.
Yeah. So, I mean, at Mount Lenton, we had 2 training pens, and then we went to 3 training pens because as soon as work finished, there'd be a dozen people down there with their young dogs trying to train them.
Yeah.
It was fanatical, really. It's just, I mean, that's what it's like. Most of the big stations in New Zealand, that's what it's just a culture. It's a culture thing.
Yeah.
Like down there, you wouldn't have to go too far looking for water either.
That's right. Yeah.
So you've come over here now and you cattle trial. Why do you cattle trial opposed to, I guess, 3 Sheep's very different but similar to trialing in New Zealand? What made you go across the cattle, I guess?
Go to the dark side. I guess the dogs I've been breeding are probably a bit full on for sheep now.
Yeah.
Like they scare them a little bit. Even though I teach them, I steer them out and try and keep them off them. At some stage, you've got to get a bit close to them, and they just, they probably don't have the touch that a lot of those sheepdog trialists have.
Yeah.
But they're a victim of circumstance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're fine here. I can get the sheep in no problem at all. We've got 1,600 ewes, and they're not rough, but they're a bit full on.
Yeah.
Has the way you educated a dog changed coming from NZ over to Oz?
No, it hasn't really, Dan. I mean, I break them in exactly the same way. And I mean, I've been thinking that I should probably try and do some USDs next year.
Yep.
So I'm pretty confident. I've never taught my dogs to back in the yards or anything like that, but they would do it if I asked them to.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's ever been a problem for them. So I just feel like, it would challenge me a bit more, and it would certainly challenge them a bit more. So
yeah. The common
thing I'm looking at having a go at.
Yeah, no, that'll be cool. I've seen some dogs with your blood in it, and I've seen them back, so that's not an issue at all. But there's a common theme here in Oz that we think about Kiwis create a more mechanical style of dog. Probably use a bit more tools to get that. When you go to educate a dog, do you find yourself, because you mentioned like having dogs with a bit more go in them, being able to screw them down a little bit more because they've got such a big motor?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've sold a few pups, and I sort of tell people, then they don't break themselves in. They're not kelpies. You gotta teach them what to do, and it does take a bit longer because they are so determined to do their own thing. They've got such a high work drive that they do take a bit of convincing sometimes that no, you can't do that. This is the way I want you to do it. But when you've got them broken in, like I reckon they're pretty hard to beat. You can do anything with them, steer them anywhere. I mean, even in New Zealand, I used to do a lot of mustering with my heading dogs because I didn't need hunterways. They had so much drive and push that I didn't need that many hunterways really. And I was probably in more I was in 4 or 5 New Zealand championship runoffs, all with hunterways, but I actually prefer heading dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like the noise.
I couldn't deal with the noise. I can see the use for them and the practicality of them, but I don't know. I think I'm always telling my dogs to shut up, and then all of a sudden you've got something that naturally wants to bark.
Yeah.
I couldn't deal with it. I like my peace and quiet, so I take it off to anyone that has a team of them. That's for sure.
But, yeah, I mean the hunt. I only brought one hunter bay with me now, and I mean I can work her quietly like a heading dog.
Yeah.
But I bred them like that. I bred them to suit me rather than, like the natural hunterway. They do have a huge amount of noise and they can be a bit painful, but you need to be able to tell them to shut up because you get sick of it and the sheep get sick of it. So, yeah.
You've spoken a bit about breaking dogs in. Do you have like a progressive kind of attitude and program, or are you kind of someone that likes to get them to like 12 months old and spend like 3-4 solid weeks on them?
No, I don't, Dan, because these dogs of mine, if you leave them till they're 12 months old,
it's a tough 12 months.
Yeah. So I get into them as soon as they start working. Like, I don't know, they probably start, generally mine would start at somewhere between 12 and 14, 16 weeks.
Yep.
I don't think I've had a dog that hasn't been going by the time it was 4 months old. And I just give them as much as they can take without, I mean, you can tell, can't you? If they've had enough, I'll leave them alone. But I give them as much as I can because if they can take it, then you've got a fully broken in dog by the time it's 14 months old.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often. I mean, at some stage during the training, they all say, hey, whoa, I've had enough. And I just leave them alone for, 2 or 3 weeks. And then, but they always come back. I've never had one that doesn't come back.
And you obviously have spent so many years breeding. Now being over here, are you still pulling those New Zealand genetics in, or are you breeding to Aussie dogs now?
I've bred a couple of times to a dog of Pete Govern's.
Mm-hmm.
So Pete's dog is by an Aussie collie, a Trowena dog.
Yeah.
The mother was a bitch I sent to Pete about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
She's one of my breed, which I've still got. So I've got all that blood still in my bitches.
Yeah.
And been really pleased with the way Pete's dog's bred. I've got a dog in New Zealand, which I've just collected, and that semen arrived about a couple of 3 weeks ago. So I'll be, back into him. I can't use Pete's dog anymore, really, because, I've got too much of the blood now.
Yep.
So I had to get an outcross, but I know the bloke who bred him, and they're as tough as teak. I might be Yeah, throw the man a rope and he'll hang himself probably, but we'll see.
Talking about rope, do you do much dry work with young pups?
On a rope,
Yeah.
am I heading dogs or huntaways?
Both.
Both. The only time I'll use a rope on a heading dog, Dan, is to stop him.
Mm-hmm.
I basically break my huntaways in exactly the same as my heading dogs. The only time I'll use a rope on a huntaway is if it's lacking a bit of noise and just slow to fire up. I'll just sort of hold them back a bit, put a flank rope on them and
build motivation through frustration.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't drive them with a harness or anything. I just, exactly the same as a heading dog. A lot of people don't put a stop on a huntaway until they're, really going strongly. But I do things a bit differently. I put a stop on them straight away, just so that if they get into trouble, you can stop them and get them out of there. Because if you've got a huntaway with a bit of grunt and you can't stop him, he can cause a bit of carnage if you're out in the paddock.
Yeah.
So I don't use harnesses but I do just a rope to stop them at the end of a rope. But 2 or 3 sessions with a rope, and generally they're pretty good.
You mentioned before, like with your stronger dogs, they want to come forward a bit, and like naturally, I suppose our collie likes to show a bit of shape, and the UK dog likes to come forward a lot. What those heading dogs you said with a bit of grunt, what's their natural setup? Like, how do they like to move?
They want to be right in their faces, but I spend a lot of time when they're young teaching them to go square on their sides. Does that make sense? Do you know what square means?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't let them come in tight. So when I give them a side, I want them to move around the sheep without moving the sheep. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you want them to maintain their shape or their arc.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah. So I'm pretty particular about that, because if I wasn't, then they'd be dangerous.
And do you find you have to like really lean and bend those style of dogs out a bit more because of their desire to get in the heads of their stock?
Yeah. So it does take me longer to get through to them.
Yep.
Than it would a softer type dog, because they're so determined, and you've got to watch them all the time. You give them an inch and they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
As I say, once you've got them, they're pretty hard to beat, I reckon, in terms of general farm work and what you can do with them.
But they're still going to be there at the end of a long day, right?
Yeah.
Some of those softer dogs might not be.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never had one give up on me.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That tells a lot about what you're doing and what you're breeding.
Yeah, but they're not everyone's cup of tea, you need to know how to train them, and I'm happy. I've always said, to people I've sold pups to, I'm happy to help you all the way along, and that's the same with heading dogs and huntaways. But certainly the heading dogs, they're not everyone's cup of tea, because they are pretty full on.
So do you want to talk a bit about the dogs you have in your camp now?
Yeah. So I've got a couple. I've got 3 actually by Pete Gavin's tuck. The Truina one out of Sophie, and I've got a lot of my bitches that I brought with me from New Zealand. So I brought 5 bitches. A lot of them were by Lloyd Smith's Ace.
Yeah.
Who not sure whether you guys are familiar with Lloyd, but he's a bit of a legend in New Zealand. And Lloyd's son-in-law was my hill manager at New Zealand for quite a number of years. So I did a lot of mustering with Lloyd, and this Ace dog was in his prime at that stage. And he was as tough as teak, but he still managed to win a New Zealand title in the short head and yard. I think he might have won a couple actually. But I mean, Lloyd's an exceptional trainer, and he said that he didn't bring that dog out to a dog trial till he was 2 years old, and he was as tough as teak. He'd do anything, and I thought that's the dog that I need to breed from to make the sort of foundation of my bitches, and so that's what happened. And most of them, well, they virtually all either by Ace or. So the bitch I sent over to Pete Gavin years ago, she was a granddaughter of Ace.
Yep.
So it just keeps coming through. Lloyd had another dog called Happy, which he was a lot more biddable, but he was still pretty tough. And there's a bit of that in mine as well. But they're just a bit more pliable, those dogs. They're a bit easier to work. But I wouldn't swap them for the world, really. They're, they never let you down. Well, they let you down every now and again at a dog trial because they're so bloody human, but they'll never let you down.
Only bitches in your camp?
I beg your pardon?
Have you only got bitches in your camp?
I did only have bitches when I came to New Zealand, and then we've got a litter the first litter we had from Pete's dog, they'd be about 2.5 now. I wanted Pete to take the dog pup, and he said, no, I want a bitch. And I said, well, I can't not keep a dog pup because I don't want to lose the line.
Yeah.
So I kept a dog, and he actually ended up being a pretty nice dog. And he's had a lot of bitches, and I've used him a lot now as myself, but I'm probably at the stage now where I can't use them anymore. But big, strong, good-looking dog, and tough as teak, and and lovely natures. They just want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I have to say, like, obviously, Mingle of Danny Kerrs is from that same litter as Tuck.
That's right.
And they're all very pleasant dogs as such. Like, you can see that coming through in your line as well. So it's pretty cool to see them in hands.
Remember when Danny first got Mingle? Obviously, he had Buddy for a while, and when he got Mingle, he's like, I'm not sure about this dog. And I was there with him. I said, I'll take her.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, hold on for a bit longer. And then he ends up winning an Australian with her. And he's done really well with her, right?
Yeah.
I think she's an open cattle and free sheepdog, as well as an Australian utility champion.
Yeah, she's just a cool dog to have around.
Yeah.
She can soak up in a minute and then be busting your nuts.
Yeah, and she's doing real work now too, where he is. Like, it's cool to see. And then you're saying the same thing about yours from that, and joining Tuck to bitches, and it's cool to see New Zealand dogs, in different, like, a lot of the times you hear New Zealand heading dog, you're thinking a paddock dog or, like,
or a Hunaway.
Or a Hunaway, but to see them working cattle and to the standard that your dogs and Pete and Danny that you've worked the cattle at, like, it's, I guess I'd never really seen it till now. It's quite interesting.
That said, did there need to be a bit of a, when you did come to Oz and brought those dogs with you, did you change anything, or did you have to toy with anything just because of the different, or you're in a cooler spot out there, down there anyways, but even just with the landscape or the stock?
So when I first came here, a lot of the cattle I was chasing hadn't seen a dog before, so I certainly had to be pretty careful. Didn't want to flatten any fences or anything, but the first place I worked on had 400 steers, just probably roaming over, I don't know, 700 or 800 hectares, and never seen a dog in their lives before. So I wore a few dogs out trying to educate cattle.
Yep.
But, a lot of the guys that I worked for, I think, had never used dogs, and they just used to chase them on motorbikes, and hadn't realised that, actually a hell of a lot easier when you can stand in one place on a high knob in a paddock and get the whole lot in from virtually without moving, without tearing around the paddock on a four-wheeler. And yeah, but just I suppose the cattle were the biggest factor that hadn't been educated. But yeah, oh man, we had a few vet bills in that first 6 or 8 months.
Ouch.
Yeah. Anyway, it's it is what it is, and they keep bouncing back. But I've probably got 2 dogs that are nearly 3-year-old now, and I've got 3 young ones I really like coming on out of a couple of bitches of Dave Crawford's Collies.
Yeah.
Dave brought a couple of bitches to my dog, and they've crossed really well. Particularly the young one, I really, really like. She's going to be a champion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be an infusion of a bit of like NZ and UK stuff there. Are you finding a bit of variation in the pups throughout a litter?
Yeah. The young one I've got so the older one I've got's probably thrown more to the collies, the UK stuff, and the younger one has probably thrown more to the New Zealand stuff. I mean, you're going to get that, aren't you, in any litter? But I like Dave's breeding program. His dogs are pretty tough, and he doesn't keep any rubbish, and he wouldn't breed from anything that wasn't worth breeding from.
Yeah.
So he's done his homework, and he's got something that he really likes there, and I think he's just been looking for a bit of an outcross, and it seems to be working really well.
That's awesome. Right. Did you have a question?
No, you go.
Oh, cool. Have you got a preferred training setup, or do you just like to get out in the open, or how do you go about educating a dog?
Generally, just starting a little. So if I've got a young dog, I just want the sheep quiet. I've got pretty quiet training sheep. In fact, they get too quiet too quickly, probably, and they need swap. It's like quite a bit. But if I've got a young dog, I've just got them in a little holding paddock down that's probably only 1.5 acres, 2 acres. But I'll always have an older dog in the background in case things get a bit wild, and so something that can hold them up in the background. And but as soon as they're ready to go, I just get them balancing on me, and just progress from there. Really, I mean, I've learned, I have got a system that I don't like cutting corners. I've got a system where you do this first, then that, then that, then that, and I don't move on to the next step until they've mastered. I don't go to F unless they've mastered A, B, C.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes you've got to back off them a little bit and give them a week or 2 off, but they always come back pretty strong. And I mean, I've got a bitch here now that's 2-year-old, and she'd be probably the toughest dog I've ever had in my life. She's by Tuck, and I've got 2 litter mates. Sorry, not litter mates, 2 that are a year older, and they're pretty tough, but they're nothing like her. I mean, she should have been at a trial 6 months ago, but and she will one day. But she's been a bit of a battle, but a lovely natured animal, but just determined. So it just takes, some of them take a bit more time than the others, and so be it. I know that when I get her, she's going to be an unreal farm dog. You'll be able to do anything you want with her. It's just, don't try and rush it. Don't try and cut corners. And if you do, then look out.
You ever find yourself easing the brakes up because you get excited when you get a young dog come through like that?
Oh yeah, you can't leave them alone. I can't. Yeah, you just want to be down there all the time. But in my younger days, probably, in my 20s, I probably cooked a few just by not knowing when to pull the pin and give them a rest. and probably ruined, well, not ruined, but spoiled, a few dogs.
Yep.
But I don't do that anymore. Yeah. You see the signs and yeah, time to lock her up for a while. But yeah, it doesn't happen to all of them. But
Yep.
Yeah. When you say lock them up, do you generally mean you don't show them stock or take them to work or anything for those 2 weeks? Like just let them out for a run?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they come to work with me and they can be on the back of the buggy, but don't let them work stock. And certainly, and I mean, I might tie them to the fence while I'm training my other dogs, but I don't get tempted to, we'll see what she's like, She might be over it now. I'll give her at least 2 or 3 weeks and then maybe just take her with me one day and have a loose and, see what she's up to, whether she's ready to go again or she, yeah.
And I was just going to say, like, on that, like, not why isn't the question, but what benefits are you seeing from that? Like, are they coming back fresher? Like, a lot of people will rest a horse for a while, but you don't hear too many people saying they rest a dog. Like, they might keep taking it to work but not train on it, or vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, I'm putting a fair bit on them at sort of 4 or 5 months old. Like they're doing 15-minute. I give them as much as they can take, basically.
Yeah.
And, some of them aren't as mentally strong at a young age as the others. Like I know a lot of guys don't even look at them until they're 12 months old, but, most of my dogs are almost fully broken in by the time they're 14 months old.
Yeah.
Well, you've been very open with that. And for some of our younger or maybe inexperienced handlers, what signs are you looking at in your pup that's telling you that it needs a break?
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever asked.
No, and that's really what I was trying to ask is, yeah.
Yeah. You'll just see signs in the dog that, like, they might start looking sideways. You'll ask them for a walk out and they'll just turn their head sideways. Just means, or you are, like my dogs are pretty full on. So that's the reason I give them, I try and pile as much as I can into them at an early age, because if you don't, then it's a bit of a shit fight, later on. So I just like to have them where I know I've got them all the time. But, they might look sideways or they might start just dropping their nose a bit. When you're working them, they just might start sniffing the ground, or they'll pick up a bit of sheep shit, or, and I just don't let them do that twice. As soon as they start doing that, you can just see that. Or you'll ask them to do like I've got an obstacle course set up in my training paddock. And as soon as I think the dogs are ready for it, I'll just, ask them to do stuff. And sometimes they tell me I'm not ready for that.
Yep.
And if I think they are, and if they're not, then they'll tell me they'll just, they'll look the other way, or they'll do something to tell me, the sheep shit, or the look away, or sniff the ground, or
just a displacement behavior to let you know that they're not really comfortable there. Like, all of a sudden they're hearing things that have been around the whole time, but I'll pay attention to that little noise now, because there's that little thing that makes them uncomfortable, and they just start paying attention to those things that, well, have always been there, but probably they never acknowledged before. I suppose what you're saying there.
That's right. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Thanks for elaborating on that, because I don't think that's something we've actually asked before, and it'd be good for some of our listeners to hear that.
Yeah. Cool. And with a hunt away, it might be that they might start dropping their noise.
Yep.
So they might start instead of barking full on, they might start, whoa, and then not wanting to bark.
Yep.
Not ready. Take them away.
Maybe even misdirecting their bark where they're normally barking on stock. And
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out to the side. Yeah.
which in a trial back over home or NZ, there's a couple of points there, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting, that talking to mates, I still keep in touch with a lot of my mates over there, and they see a lot of dogs now that are huntaways, particularly. They've been breeding them for huge noise, so really impresses judges when the dog opens up. They're standing on their back legs, just throwing their heads in the air, just boo. But when the sheep start going up the course, the dog, they don't work them like they used to. These big noise dogs, they're just machines. They're just, you've got to tell them to do everything. They're not natural at all. They're just power machines, and you've got to tell them everything. Well, the trouble with that is when you go home from the dog trial and you want to get the sheep in the paddock, it's a bloody nightmare. You've got to have some natural in them. You've got to be able to give them a bit of leeway and let them have a bit of natural ability to go around the stock and, and balance them and put the noise into them. A natural hunterway will put the noise in on its own. It'll direct the noise into where it needs to shift the sheep. But if you've got one of those big, they don't do that. They need to be told, and it just must wear you out. I've never had one, but
have you got any tips on? You talked about like the balance there of like having a dog where you have a control, but still not tapering it off, which can come through, I suppose, sometimes too much training as well. Have you got any tips for keeping the balance there
with a hunterway?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Dan, a lot of it's in the genetics. But I think a lot of it too is in the training. So I train my hunterways exactly the same as my heading dogs. I get them round the front of the sheep and I let them pick up the balance, and I expect that when I go one way, the dog goes the other way.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't do that. They put a rope on it or they put a harness on it and they put them behind the sheep and just walk around a pen with them, just going, whoa, 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 whoa. Well, that doesn't teach them anything. The reason I do that is because they are learning to work the stock as you are giving them their sides. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can do it a lot quicker. You can teach a dog a lot quicker off stock. So either a heading dog or a hunterway, you take them away from sheep and you put sides on them mechanically, they will learn a lot quicker because there's no distractions, It's just you, the dog, and the side. But it's horses for courses. That doesn't suit me. I like to watch them develop, and I like watching their natural ability come out, and I like to bring their natural ability out in them. Yeah. And you can't do that by standing behind them, holding on to their flank and, making them follow sheep around a pen. It just doesn't work for me. No. It's horses for courses.
One of my mates in NZ, one of his biggest hates for educating hunterways is seeing people training hunterways in pens, because they're hunterways. You've got to have the sheep so they can just move away, not into corners. And that themselves, like if the dog's not moving and the sheep aren't moving, is going to affect the effect and the bark of the hunterway as well.
No, I mean, the best way to get the dog to focus on the sheep and poke the noise in the right direction is to have it balancing them, Yeah. I mean, you can make the dog, and the next step of its education, you can make it walk around the side of you can follow it around the sheep around the side of a pen. But I certainly wouldn't do that to start with. I would try and bring the natural out in him first. I mean, obviously you want them to hunt them, but it's a natural progression. You start with the dog at 12 o'clock and then you bring them around to 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and then you make the dog walk in from there, and then slowly, it'll start pushing the sheep sideways, and then you just move in behind it. There's no pressure, and it is a pressure thing for hunterways, having you behind them. if you kick them up the arse when you're standing behind them, quite often you'll only do it once.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing you like talk about how you educate a dog like that, because that's effectively how I'd educate my kelpies or my collies. And you hear a lot of people talk about doing it differently, so it's really cool to hear a different method.
Yeah,
that's real cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's always worked for me, and I've probably been in 4 or 5 New Zealand Championship run-ups with Hunterways, and I've never put a rope on a dog in my life, really, other than to stop it facing me.
Yep.
Yeah. So these days, like I know you've got one Hunaway there at home. Obviously, you're not in the same sort of hilly country. And other than the yards, what are you using your Hunaway for? Like, what sort of jobs do you come out on?
So, and that was a real cool video you put up recently too, when you used her. I really like that. And you explained everything really cool. Like 10 out of 10. Awesome.
Thank you. So our country is it's not flat. It's pretty hilly, and we've got some steeper stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I use my Hunterway a lot for shifting cows and calves.
Yep.
You can
bark on cattle. Never.
Yeah. If I had a heading dog that did that, it would be going to live in a rich man's kennel. But now Hunterway, my Hunterway bitch, you stand her off cattle, 50, 60, 70, 80 meters away, and just ask her to back, and they'll go boo. But then they'll mob up and move off. But if you get her anywhere closer than that, and they'll just come charging out and want to fight,
Yep.
I can shift a lot of cows and calves with no confrontation, just by having her, a long way off them. No confrontation. They just look and they think about it. And sometimes you've got to wait a couple of minutes, but eventually they'll just move off and you're away.
Your vets wouldn't like you. You wouldn't be in there frequently enough.
She actually got torn up by a pig.
Yeah.
Oh God, bloody! I'd only been in Australia. She was only probably 8 or 9 months old, and I went into this paddock mustering cows and calves, and big mob of pigs just bounced up in the paddock, and all my dogs, just feral things, they just flew off the back of the buggy, and I couldn't stop them. And there was this big boar at the back of the mob, and I thought, surely they won't try and tackle him. Sure enough, yeah. He ripped her from here, right up here and around there. She had about 28 stitches in her face.
Oh, poor thing.
Anyway, she's
lucky to be alive.
She's as good as gold now.
We've spoken a bit, obviously, about your work with cattle and trialing. Do they cattle trial in NZ? Because not something I've really heard of too much.
No, they don't, which is bizarre, really, given the amount of effort they put into the 3 sheep trials and the yard dog trials. But I think it would go really well. I think if someone started it up over there, it would catch on really quickly. It's a great concept. I love it.
What do you like about it?
I think the sort of people that go to cattle dog trials are a bit different to the 3 sheep people. You can have a beer and have a yarn and take the piss out of each other, and it's just a really good atmosphere, and I don't know, it just seems like a really good buzz, and it's all over in 5 minutes. You go to a 3 sheep job and you're there for 15 minutes, and it just
it's like a 3, 4, 5 day event.
Yeah,
opposed to being there for a weekend.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the USD earlier. Is there anything? What would you like to achieve in the trialing world?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to compete, really competitively at the nationals and the New South Wales champs. I went up there this year and got a hiding, but the dogs didn't do anything wrong, to be fair. I was
Yep.
pretty pleased the way they went. But, I just think it's just another discipline, the USD thing. I know my dogs can do it. It's just I've got to put a bit more into them, just be a bit more precise, especially with the paddock work with the sheep. Like they've all been bred from dogs that have won 3 sheep trials in New Zealand, so it's just a matter of fine tuning it, I think. But I just think I need to get into that next year. I'm pretty keen to have a crack and just see how we go.
You and I both, mate. It's been a couple of years since I've had a crack. That said, and you seem like someone that likes a lot of practical work. How about having a crack at it, like some utility 3 sheeps utility trials where you get to do some paddock and yard stuff as well? Has that been on your radar?
It's probably not, to be fair, Dan. And I don't know why it doesn't spin my wheels. Just straight 3 sheep and yard dog. Don't know.
I'll keep chipping away at you, mate. This will be right. I'll keep chipping away, mate. For someone that was general manager for such a big enterprise, have you got any advice for not even a young person, but anyone wanting to get into the agricultural industry?
Oh, look, I think I started at the bottom, right at the bottom. You've just got to work hard, I think, and you've just got to take every opportunity that comes your way. One of the things I've learned over the years is if you're good with people, you're going to get ahead,
Yep.
If you're not good with people, you're not going to make it. But if you're starting with nothing, so you're not going home to a farm, or you're not going to inherit land or anything, and you've got to start from scratch. You've just got to be good with people, and you've got to work hard, and got to have a handful of. I'm not the smartest bloke in the world by any means, but you've just got to. I think that's the key, really. If you're good with people, both above you and below you, so your staff and whoever you're reporting to, then you'll get ahead. But hard work is pretty key.
Where would be some good opportunities to network?
In Australia or New Zealand? I don't know. In New Zealand, they have a lot of sort of farm discussion groups where, you'll have an area like, for example, the Canyon Lee area, there might be 15 or 20 farmers. You'll have a farm discussion group which talks about productivity, and everyone sort of G's each other on.
Yeah.
You put your production figures up. Sometimes people put financial figures up, but also a lot of those discussion groups have sub-discussion groups for their staff. So, the shepherds and the stock managers and that sort of stuff. And, if you're any good, people start talking about you once you go to these groups and start sort of, having a bit of a chat about how things are. And I'm not sure, I haven't come across that in Australia, really. Does that happen over here? Or?
I'm sure there'd be some kind of different associations.
Yeah, not to that extreme, I don't think. Like, 15, 20 farmers in.
No, there'd probably be like a bigger, a New South Wales organisation and a Queensland one. But yeah, that's not something I actually thought of before.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
That'd be cool. Mate, is there anyone you'd like to see us sit down and have a yarn with?
Gosh, I don't know a lot of people, really. And I've watched a few of the dog talks, but I'm not sure who you've had on before.
That's all right.
That's cool. Maybe you can hook us up with some.
Have you talked to Danny Kerr?
We have.
Definitely.
You have?
Yeah.
That's all right. You can stew on that one, mate. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
No,
So
beautiful.
Have you got a?
Yeah, we'll go just as always. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks, and why?
Say that again. Sorry, Laura.
One duck the size of a
Oh,
horse.
duck.
Yeah, one duck.
Oh,
Sorry.
what did you think she said?
Or 20 horses the size of ducks.
20 ducks, probably.
Why 20 ducks?
I don't know. You'd kick most of them, wouldn't you?
Just about.
There's no right or wrong answer.
It sounds like your Hunaway could take most of those little ones on anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and they don't have hooks, so it should be
I was going
safer.
to say probably safer, safer than the pigs.
Ceri,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time this evening, mate. We appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on with and having a yarn with us.
Appreciate
No problem at all, guys. Nice to talk.
No, thank you. And to everyone that's listening, thanks for logging on tonight. And please remember, we learn every day. And the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.